A homeless girl is invited to take part in a music competition only so people can laugh at her, and she is humiliated when she steps onto the stage. But when, even amid the laughter, she begins to sing, something unbelievable happens, leaving everyone silent, completely shocked as they hear the girl's true voice. "I can't do it. I won't be able to perform," Petra said, breathless, trying to hold back her tears. "This place isn't for me. Nobody wants to hear me sing. I need to run away." Little Petra was only 8 years old, but she already knew the weight of fear and loneliness. Her clothes were dirty and torn, and her bare feet showed open wounds. Her face, though beautiful and delicate, carried an expression of despair and insecurity. Since losing her parents at a very young age, the girl had survived on the streets. She learned how to sleep on the ground, how to share the little she had with strangers, and how to sing to earn coins that would guarantee dinner. But despite the pain, she was not completely alone. By her side, she carried her inseparable companion, an old guitar, with a cracked body and rusty strings. It was the girl's greatest treasure, the only thing left from the time when she still had a home. With that guitar, Petra used to sing on street corners, in squares and markets, trading songs for a few coins or a piece of bread. But this time the stage was different, much bigger, much scarier. She was about to perform at the biggest talent competition in the country, in front of a huge audience, with TV cameras, demanding judges, and millions of people watching at home. The girl's heart was pounding wildly when a male voice echoed from behind the set. "Petra." She turned abruptly. It was one of the show's producers, a tall man with a badge hanging from his neck and headphones over his ears. The girl swallowed hard and took a trembling step forward. "That's me," she murmured, almost voiceless. The producer smiled quickly and gestured with his clipboard. "You're next." For a moment, the homeless girl's heart seemed to stop. The sound of the audience, the hum of the lights, the movement of the cameras, all of it disappeared. It was as if the world had gone silent, leaving only the frantic sound of her own heartbeat. She pressed the guitar against her chest, trying to stay steady. But before her name could be announced, the cheerful voice of the host rang through the speakers. "And now we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with the next performance, which I've been told will be shocking." Petra let out a relieved sigh. She took advantage of the break to run to the restroom. Inside, she locked herself in and leaned against the sink, staring at her own reflection in the mirror. "Come on, Petra. You've been through worse," she told herself, trying to believe it. She placed a hand over her chest, feeling her heart racing. "You sang on the streets for nobody and still never gave up. Now it's just singing for more people, that's all." She splashed some cold water on her face, took a deep breath, and looked at herself again. She tried to smile, even though it was shaky and timid. "It's just singing." "You can sing," she said, determined. The girl fixed her hair, tied the frayed strap of her sandal, picked up her guitar, and left the restroom. As soon as she stepped into the hallway, she heard the same producer shout urgently. "Break's over. Everyone to your places." A chill ran up Petra's spine, but she took a deep breath and walked toward the stage. The sound of the audience returning, the spotlights turning back on, and the host taking his position with a dazzling smile filled the air. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced enthusiastically. "Our next contestant is a new voice that promises to move the entire country. She came from absolutely nothing and is here for the chance to achieve everything, with you. Petra." The curtains began to open. For a moment, silence fell over the audience. The crowd watched curiously as that frail little girl appeared, wearing simple clothes and carrying a patched-up guitar. Petra took a few hesitant steps toward the center of the stage. Sweat ran down her forehead, shining under the intense lights. She looked at the crowd, then at her guitar, and took a deep breath. She closed her eyes and played the first chord. The sound of the old strings echoed softly, pure and gentle. But before she could sing her first word, something unexpected happened. Suddenly, a rope was pulled from backstage, and a bucket of thick paint fell from above, completely dumping over the girl. The paint ran through her hair, over her face, and down her clothes, staining everything, including the guitar. The liquid spilled across the stage floor, leaving streaks behind. For a moment, silence returned. Then cruel laughter spread through part of the audience. Some people shouted, others laughed mercilessly. Petra stood frozen. Her eyes filled with tears, her hands trembled, and her heart screamed for her to run, to flee, to disappear and never sing again. The other children participating in the program watched from backstage, many of them unable to hold back their laughter. "Did you really think we'd let a beggar sing here?" one of them mocked with contempt. The cruel laughter echoed in the girl's mind. Petra lowered her gaze and saw her guitar covered in paint. The same instrument that had kept her company on cold nights now looked as dirty and humiliated as she felt. And for an instant, everything froze, and time went backward. Before that nightmare began, days earlier, the girl's life followed a different path, simpler, but full of hope. No spotlights, no audience, no competition. Back then, the world was Petra's stage. She slept under a storefront awning, hugging her old guitar like someone protecting a teddy bear. Her improvised cover was made of a torn tarp, tied with clothesline rope. The instrument was full of patches, but to the girl it was a precious treasure. Every morning, Petra woke to the sound of shops opening, metal doors rolling up, and hurried voices on the street. To her, that noise felt like the city saying good morning. That day, she rubbed her eyes, stretched, and smiled despite the cold soreness in her body. "Come on, faithful companion, let's try one more day," she whispered to the guitar. "Today I feel like things are going to work out." She stood up, shook the dust off her coat, slung the guitar over her back, and walked along the sidewalk, dodging people rushing past. When she reached the bus terminal, she sat on the cold ground, watching the comings and goings of shoes and suitcases. No one looked at her. No one noticed her presence. Petra took a deep breath and murmured, "It's time, Petra. Let's make the day start beautifully." The first note came out shaky, almost choked, as if the guitar hesitated to respond to the girl's small fingers. Then came the second, the third, and little by little Petra's voice began to fill the air. She sang with her eyes closed, letting her heart guide the sound. For a moment, it felt like the world had disappeared and only she and the music existed. But the magic was interrupted by a rude voice. A man in a suit, holding his phone, turned around irritably. "Can you stop that noise?" he complained, frowning. "I'm trying to take an important call." Petra pretended not to hear. She hugged the guitar tighter and kept playing. The melody sounded stronger now, as if the music were the only shield she had against the harshness of the world. The bus terminal security guard appeared soon after. His hands were on his hips, his expression impatient, his gaze cold, someone who had seen that scene many times. "Hey, girl, how many times have I told you that you can't stay here bothering passengers?" he said harshly. "Get out of here before I call the police." Petra hugged the guitar tightly, as if to protect herself. "I'm not bothering anyone, sir. I'm just singing," she replied softly, her voice trembling. "Yes, you are bothering people. This is a place for workers, not for people begging for coins." "Move along," the man snapped, crossing his arms. With her face burning with shame, Petra lowered her head, stood up slowly, and walked away, the guitar on her back, her steps light, her heart heavy. She walked through a few streets until she found a square. Tall trees provided shade, the noise of cars faded, and the breeze carried a faint scent of earth and flowers. It seemed like a good place to start again. She sat on an empty bench, took the guitar out of its improvised cover, and began to play again. The melody was soft, gentle, shy. Little by little, some passers-by stopped. A group of teenagers approached, curious, forming a small circle around her. Petra noticed the interest and, for the first time that day, managed a smile. She played with more feeling, letting her voice flow. For the first time in a long while, someone seemed to truly listen. The world, so cruel to homeless people, seemed to give her a brief break. The music, for a moment, made everything worth it. But the happiness didn't last. One of the boys looked at his friends and let out a mocking laugh. "Look at that pigeon thinking she's a songbird," he sneered, waving his phone to record. "Sing one for us, pop star beggar." The others burst out laughing. "Pop star beggar. That's a good one," another shouted, kicking an empty can into the air. Their laughter filled the square. They clapped on purpose, pretending they were at a concert, making cruel jokes at every verse the girls sang. Petra kept playing, trying to ignore them. She clutched the guitar, bit her lip, and insisted on the song. But when one of the boys exaggeratedly mimicked her voice, pretending to sing like her, the humiliation became unbearable. The laughter grew louder. Petra stopped. She stood up slowly, brushed the dust off her clothes, and calmly put the guitar away. She said nothing, just turned her back and walked away. "I was wrong, companion. Today's going to be just as bad as the others," she murmured, looking at the guitar hanging from her back. She walked to a quieter corner where there were fewer people and a light breeze. She was about to put the guitar away when she heard a different voice, calm, gentle, without aggression. "Wait a moment. Were you the one singing earlier?" Petra turned around, suspicious. A couple was approaching. They didn't have the arrogant look of the others. The woman was brunette, her hair tied in a ponytail, and her smile seemed to light up everything around her. The man, with kind eyes and a calm expression, held a folder and a notebook. Petra lowered her gaze. Her heart raced. She thought they would also chase her away, bothered by the presence of a dirty, ragged homeless girl. Trying to get ahead of the humiliation, she said, "Yes, it was me. But I'm leaving now. I won't bother anyone anymore. I'll find another place to sing." The woman stepped forward, crouched down to the girl's height, and smiled tenderly. "No, sweetheart. We stopped you because your voice is beautiful." Petra blinked, confused. "Beautiful?" she asked, incredulous. "My voice?" The woman nodded, and the man crouched as well, resting the notebook on his knee. "It is. You know when you hear something so beautiful that you want the world to stop just to listen," he said with a smile. "That's what I felt just now." Petra stood still, trying to understand what was happening. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. The man then extended his hand. "My name is Pedro, and this is my wife, Lillian. We work with music, we teach, perform, and from time to time we find talented children like you to participate in the biggest talent competition in the region." Lillian smiled even wider, took something out of her pocket, and handed it to Petra, a small card with gold letters. "You should join us," she said sweetly. Petra held the card carefully, as if it were something precious. She looked at it, then at the couple, and replied shyly, "Me? In a competition?" She gave a nervous half-smile. "I don't think so. Everyone laughs when I sing." Pedro slowly shook his head, understanding. "Sometimes we think we can't do something just because the world keeps telling us that," he explained. "But what if the world is wrong?" The girl remained silent, staring at the ground. "But nobody will want to see me there," she confessed. "People don't even like to look at me." Lillian reached out and gently touched the girl's shoulder. "You were born to sing, child," she said tenderly. "Not to hide. Think about it carefully." Petra didn't respond. Her gaze wavered between the card and the woman's kind face. Fear was still stronger than hope. Lillian noticed the silence and added calmly, "You don't have to decide now. If you change your mind, go to the address on the card. We'll be waiting for you." Petra held the card against her chest like a secret and stood there, watching the couple walk away and disappear among the people in the square. The girl stared at the crumpled card in her small, dirty hands, unsure of what to do with it. She looked at the paper, sighed, and hugged the guitar to her chest. "I don't know if I'm made for a stage," she murmured softly. "Maybe just for the sidewalk." She tucked the card into the torn pocket of her coat and stood there for a few seconds, staring at the ground. The wind messed up her hair, and the distant sound of the city seemed to swallow what little hope remained. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, Petra woke up. The sky was gray, and the cold still cut through the air. The girl stretched slowly, trying to shake off the exhaustion, and hugged the guitar, as she always did. "Another day, companion," she whispered with a small smile. But this time she didn't go to the bus terminal. Petra decided to visit the only friend she had in the world, Joasinho, the shoeshiner. She affectionately called him her street brother. He was the only one who truly understood what it meant to live without a home or security. When Petra arrived at the spot where he worked, she saw Joasinho in his usual place, sitting on a wooden box that seemed made just for him, wearing a crooked cap and an apron covered in shoe polish. He was focused on shining the shoes of a man in a suit, but when he noticed the girl, he broke into a huge smile. "Well, look who came to brighten up my workplace," he joked, waving the polishing cloth. "I thought you'd become an international singer and forgotten all about me." The little homeless girl laughed softly. "If I were a real singer, you'd be my bodyguard, Joasinho," she said playfully. He pretended to think for a moment and replied, "Oh yeah? Then I'm already hired, but I hope you pay well, because Shining Shoes hasn't been paying much lately." They laughed together. It was rare for them to find humor in things, but when they were together, everything felt lighter. Joasinho finished the job, wiped his hands on a rag, and looked at his friend more seriously. "But what about you, Ran? You look kind of off. Did something happen?" Petra took a deep breath and looked down. "Something kind of crazy happened," she began shyly. "Yesterday I was singing and a couple stopped to listen. They said my voice is beautiful." Joasinho raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Really? That's great, Petra." She continued, remembering the moment. "They were really nice. The woman even said my voice made her want to stop the world just to listen. And the man said he works with music, that he helps kids sing in a competition." The boy's eyes widened. "A competition? Like on TV?" Petra shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe. And they gave me this, but I can't read to know what it says." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the crumpled card. It was already a bit torn, with dirt stains along the edges. Joasinho took the card carefully and adjusted his cap, curious. "Leave it to me," he said excitedly, beginning to read the words carefully. After a few seconds, his eyes went wide. "Wait a second, I know this," he exclaimed. "It's a super famous TV show, the one where kids show their talents to judges with an audience and everything." Petra looked at him suspiciously. "Hey, Joasinho, how do you watch that show if you don't even have a TV?" The boy laughed and answered without stopping reading. "I watch it through the bar's display window, you goofball," he said, excited. "The show's called The Voice of Brazil, and look here, this is the address, José Sabia Street, number 125. Joasinho looked up, his face glowing with excitement. "Looks like a really fancy place. They want you to sing on the show." "Wow, Petra, this is serious." But the girl didn't seem as excited as her friend. She hugged the guitar and replied quietly, "That's what they said. But I don't know. I think they just said that to cheer me up. Nobody wants to see a girl like me singing." The little shoeshiner stared at her in disbelief. He straightened up and raised his voice without noticing. "What are you talking about, Petra? Of course you're going." Realizing he was too loud, he took a breath and tried to calm down. I mean, I'd want to hear you. I'd be in the front row clapping and everything. Petra gave a shy smile, her eyes soft. You say that because you're my friend. Joaquinho shook his head indignantly. Petra, you're really good. You have talent. And I've told you 1,000,000 times, if you have talent, you can't waste it. If you know how to sing, then sing, you silly girl. That's what I'd do if I had that gift. She looked at him, moved. But you have talent too, Joaquinho, she said sweetly. The boy laughed shortly and replied without hesitation, I know, you dummy. My talent is shining shoes, and that's what I do without complaining. Have you ever seen me crying or turning down customers because I think I can't do it? He asked, tapping his shoeshine box. Of course not. Petra looked at him and felt her heart lighten. You're right, she replied with a smile. You talk like that annoying Nildo, but you're right. Her smile grew. I'll go after that couple from the competition. Is Jose Sabia Street far? Joaquinho grinned, happy to have convinced her. A little, but you can walk there, he explained. The little singer adjusted the guitar on her back and took a deep breath. Well then, bye, my friend, she said, starting to walk away. The boy's eyes widened in surprise. You're going now? Petra looked back over her shoulder and replied without thinking twice. If I think too much, I'll end up giving up. And that's exactly what the little girl did. Petra slung the old guitar over her back, adjusted the improvised rope straps, and began walking down the avenue, her heart beating faster with every step. Each street sign told her she was getting closer to the address. She walked carefully, reading signs under her breath. Okay, this is Jose Sabia Street. But it's huge, she muttered, frowning. So many buildings. It'll take forever to find the right place. I'd better start now. She began walking along the street, counting the building numbers, trying not to lose focus. 11. 140, she said slowly, looking around. I can't find it. Distracted by the signs and the guitar swinging on her back, she bumped into a well-dressed woman. The woman stepped back and looked at Petra with disgust. Just what I needed, she said irritably. I thought the city had already kicked all the beggars out of downtown. Even with her heart racing, Petra tried to explain calmly. Sorry, ma'am, I'm not asking for anything. I'm just trying to find number 125. The woman rolled her eyes impatiently, adjusted her purse on her shoulder, and replied, That's the building for the Voice of Brazil. And what could you possibly want there? Well, I don't care. It's right around the corner. Now go and get out of my way. Petra nodded, embarrassed, and replied with a timid smile. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. She began to run, weaving through the crowded sidewalks. Many eyes turned toward her, some with disdain, others with simple curiosity. Some people whispered, others frowned, bothered by the presence of a dirty, barefoot child. But Petra didn't care. Her heart beat like a drum, and with every step she felt closer to something big. That was her treasure X, the place where hope was hidden. When she finally turned the corner, she stopped abruptly. What she saw made her jaw drop. Wow, she whispered, unable to believe her eyes. In front of her stood a gigantic, modern building with mirrored windows and a glowing sign at the top, the Voice of Brazil, National Young Talent Competition. The reflection of the golden letters danced across the girl's face. For a moment, Petra felt even smaller than she already was. The guitar weighed heavily on her back, and her heart felt like it might jump out of her chest. Is it really here? She murmured, clutching the crumpled card tightly. She took a deep breath, ran her hands through her messy hair, and took her first steps toward the revolving door. But before she could enter, a uniformed woman stepped in front of her, raising her arm like a barrier. Hey, kid, this isn't a shelter, she said harshly. Only employees or contestants are allowed in. Go beg somewhere else. Petra blinked, startled. But I didn't come to beg, she explained quickly, pulling the card from her pocket. They told me to come here. Look, they gave me this. The woman took the paper between two fingers, as if avoiding touching the girl, and grimaced in disgust, as though the card were dirty. Who gave you this? She asked, crossing her arms. Petra tried to keep her voice calm, even as fear grew. A couple. They said they work with the competition. Their names are. The employee didn't let her finish. She looked the girl up and down and interrupted with a mocking smile. Listen here, girl. Do you really think someone like you has anything to do with a place like this? The girl's eyes lost their sparkle. Her chest tightened, and her words came out almost as a whisper. I just wanted to sing. The woman laughed disdainfully. Oh, sure. And I wanted to be Queen of England. Life isn't fair, is it? She said sarcastically. Besides, you can only enter with your parents. Do you even know what that is? Petra looked up, confused. But I don't have them. I don't have a mom or a dad, she replied weakly. The woman gave a fake smile and replied coldly. What a shame. I don't care, brat. Now get back to the street before I call security. Petra reached out to take the card back, but the woman shoved her hard. The push was stronger than she expected. The girl lost her balance and fell onto the sidewalk. The guitar hit the ground with a dull sound, like a muffled cry. Her eyes filled with tears. Before she could get up, a deep, firm voice echoed behind them. What's going on here? The uniformed woman turned pale, immediately straightened up, adjusted her badge, and forced a smile. Oh, Mr. Martino, she said quickly. This girl was trying to get in. She claims she was invited to participate in the competition. Can you imagine? Petra looked up. Standing in front of her was a tall, elegant man wearing a dark suit and polished shoes. His eyes were attentive and serious, but not cold. Did you create this competition? The girl asked, her voice still trembling. The man gave a small smile and replied calmly. I'm the owner. Yes. And you? What were you doing trying to get in here? Petra wiped her face and held the guitar, trying to compose herself. I just wanted to sing, she explained. They gave me a card and said I should come here. I swear I didn't lie. Martino extended his hand, took the paper, and examined it closely. And who gave you this? He asked, looking for clues. Petra took a deep breath and answered honestly. A couple. A man and a woman. She said. My voice made the world stop. The man stayed silent for a few seconds, studied the card, then looked at the dirty, frightened girl. Finally, he spoke softly. I see. The uniformed woman crossed her arms impatiently. Sir, with all due respect, but this girl must be making this story up. Martino raised his hand, cutting her off without even looking at her. No. Leave this to me. He bent down slightly and extended his hand to the girl. Come. Let's go inside. Petra blinked in surprise. But she said I can't go in. The man gave a cold, authoritative smile. But I'm saying you can. The little girl hesitated. Fear and hope battled inside her. After a few seconds, she took a deep breath and carefully took his hand. She stood up, picked up the guitar from the ground, and brushed the dust off her clothes. Thank you, sir, she murmured, looking down. Martino nodded and guided her to the entrance. Together they passed through the imposing revolving door. As soon as the glass closed behind them, the noise of the street disappeared completely, as if the outside world had been turned off. The elegant silence of the building made the girl's heart race. Inside, Petra felt something she had never felt before, fear and excitement mixed together. This is it, Petra. There's no turning back now, her thoughts echoed. She looked around, enchanted. The building was huge, with wide, gleaming corridors filled with framed photos and posters of smiling children holding golden trophies, winners of previous seasons of the show. There were large elevators, glass doors, sparkling lights, everything so clean it reflected her face. "Wow," was all she could say, amazed. Martino watched her expression and smiled discreetly. "So, girl, what's your name again?" They kept walking, passing rooms filled with neatly arranged instruments, scattered sheet music, and distant rehearsal sounds. Every corner smelled of expensive perfume and fresh soap, a world completely different from the one Petra knew. Finally, they stopped in front of a large dark wooden door. Martino turned the handle and opened it. "This is the dormitory," he said firmly. "You'll stay here for now. We have several children participating. Tomorrow we'll start voice tests and rehearsals." Petra took a shy step inside. The dormitory was enormous, with tall windows, pink curtains, and several perfectly made beds covered with white sheets and fluffy pillows. But what caught her attention most were the other girls inside. All of them were well cared for, hair neatly styled, clean nails, new pajamas smelling of soap. When they saw Petra standing at the door, dirty clothes, grimy feet, and an old guitar on her back, they began whispering to each other. Martino tried to break the ice. "Girls, this is Petra," he announced. "She'll be participating in the competition as well. I hope you welcome her." Giggles began, soft at first, but clearly audible. Then one of the girls got up from her bed. She was blonde, a few years older than Petra, with a perfect braid and expensive pajamas. Her arrogant smile and raised nose revealed exactly what kind of person she was. She smiled cynically and replied, "Don't worry, Mr. Martino. We'll take very good care of her." Martino gave a brief approving gesture, unaware of the malice behind her words. "Excellent, Amanda," he said. "The uniform and pajamas are in the closet along with hygiene items. Tomorrow at exactly 8 a.m., everyone in the auditorium. Understood?" The girls answered in unison, their voices perfectly synchronized. "Yes, sir." Martino turned to Petra and added, "Rest well. Tomorrow will be a full day." Then he left, closing the door behind him. For a few seconds, silence filled the room. Petra stood there, unsure of what to do. She took a few hesitant steps toward the closet and opened it slowly, looking for the clothes Martino had mentioned, but all the shelves were empty. Mr. Martino said there was a pajama for me," she said with a hint of hope. Amanda crossed her arms and gave a mocking look. "Oh, it must have run out. What a shame," she said with a cruel smile. "Sleep in those clothes, little beggar. They suit you better." The other girls laughed, whispering among themselves. Petra took a deep breath, trying not to cry. "It's okay. I can sleep like this," she replied, her voice trembling. She looked around. All the beds were occupied. "Is there any bed left?" she asked, trying to sound optimistic. Amanda raised an eyebrow, pretending sympathy. "Of course there is," she replied with a fake giggle. "You can sleep over there." She pointed with her chin to a corner near the window. There was only cold floor and an old cushion, torn at the edges. Petra looked at the corner, then back at the girls. Her voice came out low and shaky. "But there's no bed there." Amanda raised an eyebrow again and replied cruelly, full of irony. "Well, don't you sleep on the ground every day? You should be used to it by now." Laughter echoed through the dormitory. Some girls covered their mouths, others laughed openly. Petra's eyes filled with tears, but she took a deep breath and refused to let them fall. She hugged the guitar tightly, trying to be strong. "You're strong, Petra. Don't let them tell you otherwise," she repeated silently. She walked to the corner, dragging her feet across the cold floor. She set the guitar aside, adjusted the old cushion, and leaned against it, trying to get comfortable. The laughter faded into whispers and muffled giggles. She stared at the ceiling, trying to think of something else, any good memory that could make her forget that moment. Then one of the younger girls approached. She was about 7 years old, with short bangs and light blue pajamas, holding a thin blanket. Petra's eyes widened in surprise. "Thank you," she said, reaching out. But before she could take it, a shout came from the other side of the room. "Leave that beggar alone!" Amanda yelled. "That blanket isn't hers, it's yours." The little girl shrank back, scared, and ran to her bed, taking the blanket with her. Petra sighed deeply, looking at the floor. "It's okay. I'm used to this," she whispered. She closed her eyes, and exhaustion quickly overcame her. She fell asleep on the cold floor, hugging her guitar.